Okay, so what we're going to cover in the next 50 minutes, first of all, hoki whakamaumahara ki muri, how did we establish and build whanaungatanga? So basically looking at how did we get to be in this space that we're currently in? Why are you all in this session all of a sudden when, 5 years ago, entering the digital space might not have been an issue for a lot of us. So we're going to have a look at some of those ideas around how we used to communicate. And then following that, how has this changed? So obviously the world changed very quickly over the last year or two, and what's sort of being put in place to manage that? What are the challenges, hurdles, or solutions that are available to us? So this is where we're going to start to get into some practical tools that you can use within your mahi. So I'm aware that there's quite a lot of different professions in this session. So usually we develop kaiako reo Māori or kaiako in general. So I'm going to try and make the tools that we're going to talk about quite broad so that you could see how you can apply them both in your professional life, in your whānau life, and in your community, marae, hapu, all that sort of thing as well. So I've got a general overview. At the end, we'll have a bit of hopefully have time for a kōrero. So if you want some specific guidance around a particular area, then we can talk about that and hopefully have something valuable for you there. How to connect people through digital technology and how can we make authentic and inclusive connections. So that's looking at all of the people that we have in our circles. Like I said, your mahi, your community, your whānau. How can we actually build on those relationships and make sure that everyone is on this waka with us? Some people have different levels of digital literacy. So how can we make sure that we're catering to them as well? So it sounds quite lectury. There's going to be a lot of links involved. Stuff's going to go wrong. I'm pretty confident that things will go wrong. So if you can just bear with me as I try and share those out. But the best way to kind of get you to understand these tools and what we're going to be using is just to have a tutu yourself. So we're going to be using the chat function a bit. So I'm going to drop some links in there throughout this kōrero so that you can click on them and open them yourself. If you're competent with split screen, so that's when you have slides on one side of your screen and the Zoom on the other, then you'll find that very valuable throughout this session. If that's going to make you have a brain meltdown, then don't worry about it. Just stay fixed on this first screen so that we don't lose you completely. Kapai, if you're in the wrong place and you're like, I didn't sign up for this chick there, that's all good. You can leave. I won't take it personally. Okay, so I guess our first po is we're looking at, how did we used to communicate? So this is my tino flash, whare nui, te nota, this is te whare o mua, so our old marae, nā whai marae. And I've put that picture up to kind of have a kōrero about it, about how i ngā wā o mua people used to communicate. So our world looked a lot different. People were physically closer. They lived by the marae. In this case, my whānau would know that there was something going on at the marae because they would see smoke coming out of the kitchen, or they would see, cars in the car park, and then they knew, oh, something's happening, we better get down there and do some mahi. That's how we used to operate. We know now that that's not really the case. So we're going to have a look at that in a bit. So with that physical proximity, there was obviously the sense of community was stronger. Everyone knew what was going on in everyone else's business, which might have been a good thing or a bad thing, depending on the whānau. But that idea of popping over for a cup of tea, that was all something that we were comfortable. I say we, I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about my parents and my kaumātua, because I hate when people just stop over unannounced. But that was normal. That was normal back in the day. You would hear what was going on through the kumara vine, and this old school thing called home phones that my kids have no idea what that is. If an analog phone was put in front of them, they wouldn't be able to dial 111 in an emergency. That was my upbringing. It's not theirs, so it kind of shows how quickly things can change. So I just want to kind of have that in our minds, that think about all those sort of things that you use to build relationships, or technology that you used to use when you were growing up, and just how quickly that has changed, and how you've had to cope with it, or what you've done to cope with it. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit as well. So we're in a very different environment at the moment. So things have completely changed. So the average age of the Māori population is 26 years old. If you're 26 years old, cool, go you. I'm not 26 years old anymore. That means I'm older than the average population. I didn't realize that stat, but it kind of shows us that our rangatahi are quite integral in how we are going to carry on into the future. So having ways to communicate and build relationships, it's going to be really important that we actually look at the things that they're doing and what they need to do, and we start to nurture that, so we can make sure that they're the ones that have the tools that can carry on now, or they can carry on our mātauranga, they can carry on with building their whanaungatanga in their own ways. Obviously, we've got majority of Māori in urban areas. If someone was in the kitchen at my marae, I'd have no idea. It's 7 hours away. Not sure about that anymore. Decrease in the use of landline phones, 65%. Yeah, nei wā. I ngā wā mua, I knew all of the I knew all of the phone numbers for all my mates, my mum's offices, even my primary school. Now I only know a couple of cell phone numbers. That sort of way of communicating, the old pick up the phone, doesn't exist that much anymore. If someone rings me, especially if it's one of my mates, they ring me, I have a bit of a panic attack, because I think, oh, something's happened. Because I'm like, why are you ringing? Don't ring me, text me, message me, then ring me if it's important. So it's really changed how we communicate with each other. And something that's really interesting that we're going to talk about when we come to social media is 3.97 million people in New Zealand use some form of social media. I remember when Facebook started, it wasn't that long ago. Now majority of the country is on some form of social media. So how can we tap into things so that we can make sure that those connections that we're building are strong, but also authentic. Okay. Okay, so being a teacher, usually I'm quite good with the segues of how things flow into our next kaupapa. However, this one's a little bit disjointed because I want you to start using the technologies that I talk about first. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is matua kukara. So using Google. We all know what Google's about, but not all of us know what Google extensions are. So Google extensions, for those of you that don't know, they're the little symbols that sit up the top of your Google browser. So when I talk about a browser, I'm talking about a web page. If you're using another browser, so by that I mean something like Firefox, so if you're on a Mac or whatever the other one is, then these things won't necessarily apply, but everyone can get a Google Chrome browser. So this is what I'm going to kind of be referring to when we're using these tools, on the assumption that you're on a Google Chrome browser. So Google extensions, they can be installed and they just increase so much productivity in the things that you can do with your web browser. So if you click on the three dots, don't do it now if you're going to lose me, but because there's a picture there. If you click on the three dots and drop down to more tools, you'll see extensions. You can open the extensions, and then you'll see all of these additional web browser hacks that you can use. We're going to talk about it at the end if we have time. I've got a whole list of really helpful ones. But one that we're going to talk about specifically, which is super helpful in this current situation that we're in, is a thing called Loom. So Loom is a screen recording Chrome extension. So if you followed those steps that I said, which is go to your drop down, go to extensions and type in Loom, you should come up with a website which will get you to sign up. It's super easy sign up. It's all with a Google account or a Microsoft account. And it's screen recording. Then a little picture like this one here that you'll see with the circle. That's my Chrome extension that pops up in the corner of your screen. Every time you click it, it's going to capture whatever is on your screen. So it's not a snapshot or a print screen function. It's actually a live recording. So at the moment, I'm recording this session. I've got my Zoom on one side of the screen, then I've got my slides on the other, and my Loom is recording all of this. As soon as I push stop, that's going to send me a link and say, here's the link to your Loom. Then I can chuck that out to whoever I want straight away. So it's not a file. It's not something that you have to download and it's going to take ages, and then you have to upload it to an email. And then you think, oh, it's too big to send. How am I going to get it to you? I'm going to put it in the drive, and then I'll send you the link and you're going to have sharing access, blah, blah, blah. Some of this is probably causing some PTSD with some people who've all experienced that before. But with Loom, it's literally one click. It's a link, and then your video plays. What's really great about Loom is once you've recorded something, you become obviously the owner of that recording, and you can get a notification every time someone plays your video. So we have a lot of subcontractors working with Poutawa, and none of them are in this hui, so I don't know if they know this yet, but every time someone clicks my video, I can see that someone's watched it. So if I send someone a task and I'm saying, okay, so you're going to click on this link, and then you're going to go that, and then we're going to format this, I'll record that as a Loom, send it to whoever's looking after it, and then they watch it. I know they haven't watched it yet because I won't get a notification saying they watched it. So if I see they've watched it 3 hours later, I'm like, yeah, well, I'm not paying you until then. So hopefully they don't watch this recording and they're like, oh, geez, I better watch that Loom straight away as she sends it. But it's super helpful if you have to explain anything. If you're a kaiako, obviously that function is going to be really helpful when you're sending out mahi to your students, especially mahi kāinga. If you're in a professional space, if you need to talk to somebody and say, hey, I'm just questioning what's going on this document and why aren't we da 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 da, put it in a Loom, save it as a link, and tukua, then it's all done. Okay, super easy. It's free up to all of these things that we're going to talk about are free as well to a certain level. So for instance, you might not be able to record longer than an hour on Loom unless you get another account. All right, kapai, any pātai on that? Okay, so this is where we might get a little bit technical, is we're going to move over to a link called Neopod. So I'm going to locate our chat.
Yo. Oh, yo.
Okay, so in our chat, I've just put a link to a website called Neopod. So when you open it up, it's going to ask you, what is it going to ask you? It's going to ask you something like that. So you're going to go to your chat and you're just going to put in your name. Neopod's really handy because it means that you can interact with the slides directly. So at the moment, I'm going to stop presenting my screen because then it will become a little bit easier to follow. Kapai. So you shouldn't see my screen anymore. Yep. Cool. So you should just be able to open that link that's in the chat and type your name in. And then you'll see our slide again. Okay, so as I move through the slides, your screen should move as well. So the difference with using Neopod as opposed to screen share is that if there's a link or something I want you to interact with, you just click straight on your screen. Okay, often someone will be presenting their screen to me and they're reading through it and I'm like, oh, hurry up, I want to scroll through there. But you can't scroll through there because you've got to wait for them to get there. This way you can go for gold all on your own with limits. Okay, so can I get a thumbs up, like a physical thumbs up, if you've got Neopod, if you could see what I'm seeing, ka pai. Also, this is probably one of the handiest tools that I've found teaching in the digital space is this, not Neopod, this, a physical thumbs up to see if people are on the right track, not the use the emoji, but actually just, are we there? Okay, so we're going to use a couple of features in Neopod so you can see how they work, and then I'm going to bring you back to the screen share for some other mahi in a second. Can someone tell me what you currently see, what you could currently see on your screen?
Great interactive slides, aids collaboration. It's got like two panels.
Ka pai, thank you for that very in-depth explanation, Emmeline. So yeah, those things in the white panel are all the things that you can integrate. So by integrate, it basically means add into Google Slides. So if you share out a slide through Neopod, you can add like a matching pair game, memory test, open-ended questions, fill in the blanks, heaps of things that you can use in Neopod. So the one thing that we're going to try and do right now is that picture that you can see on the bottom left corner, which is called a collaborate board. So a question's going to pop up, and in your screen you should see a space where you can interact with that question. So I'm just going to go for gold and you'll see what happens. So a question should pop up there. You can either choose to approve the comments if you've got people in your workplace. I mean, in my space, it's women stupid teenagers who want to write dumb stuff on the collaborate board. But if you've got people like that in your mahi that you might need to approve their comments before they post it, then by all means you can do that using Neopod. So the question there is just no hea koe, where you from? So we're just going to do a little bit of whanaungatanga amongst us now and see where everyone is coming in from. So you can either write where you live, where your iwi, i roti te reo Māori, i roti te reo Pākehā, kei a koe. So you should be able to click on your screen, ka pai, and then can you see it all popping up? Rawe. If you're also from that place, so you can see all these post-its popping up. If you're also from there, you can see a a little heart at the bottom right corner. Put a heart there. So then we can see if we've got whānau from the same place. So we've got no Dargaville, no Tauranga, no Tonga, no Te Tai Tōkero, Kia ora Teresa. So I want to give you a heart there. No Ngāti Hine, no Taranaki, no Waikato, ka aroha, ko Ngāti Whātua tōku iwi, ka pai. So I can see that there's 5 hearts from Te Tai Tōkero at the moment. Ka pai, we're winning. I mean, we're the majority. It's not a competition. So go in and chuck a like next to your whānau. Ka pai, Gloria's got a picture in there as well. Rawe, no Tainui. Ka pai, Lewin, ko wai te tihi whanaunga. If you were to look at that and build a relationship or a connection with somebody who's...
E ngana nau te kimi te ingoa o te tangata.
Oh, really? Just me?
I can only see her no Waikato a hau. Hari te mea kei te whakamohio mai ko wai tēnā.
Oh, ka pai, okay. I forgot about that. Aloha mai. So I, as a teacher, I can see the names, so I can see who's putting dumb comments on there. but as an anonymous collaborator, you can't see the names, which I guess is good if you're going to use something like this in a staff hui, where it's getting whakaaro on something or capturing someone's opinion on something, then I guess it's your anonymous post. But just bear in mind that I can see the name. So if you're going to go in on your tumuaki boss, whatever, and they're the Zoom host, they'll see. Ka pai, so ko ngaire pene te tehi o tō whanaunga Loom. Just put it out there. Ka pai. So now, obviously, that's just a quick little activity you can do just to kind of identify where everyone is from. But now we're actually going to try and get some whakaaro around this digital space going. So I won't say your name, but the pātai that we're just going to chuck out there are what are some challenges when using digital technology. So just on the kind of brief things that I've explained thus far, what are some of those kind of challenges or hurdles that you might face if one, you were using it, two, you were trying to use it in your community with your whānau or with your mahi? What are some of those things that might stand in your way? With this really different environment that we now find ourselves in, there's been a whole lot of kind of holding our breath, you know, waiting for levels to change, waiting to get back to the office, waiting to get back into the classroom. We're just waiting for the situation to be over, and then we can return back to some sort of normalcy. However, that's not really going to happen. Like, oh no, I'm not one of those people. Like, it's definitely, it's going to happen eventually. But what I mean to say is our kind of all is forever changed. People are going to be operating in the digital space a bit more. It's going to be a reality to be able to work from home. Prior to COVID, we wouldn't have been able to have a Zoom. People just weren't in that space to do online conferences or hui unless you were in a corporate space. So now we need to take this kind of momentum that we have of operating in this space and be like, how can we still go out into our communities? How can we still connect with our whānau if we were to remain in this situation for a while? Right. So identifying those challenges are going to be necessary in order to develop or in order to keep using these. So once again, if you agree with some of these things, please chuck a like on that post-it or that post, and we're going to kind of talk about them throughout the next few slides. So just to recap, we've got poor internet, fatigue, different levels of digital literacy, internet, weak connection, ka pai, misinformation, tika versus tika, absolutely. That's actually been a huge thing that's happened in the last couple of weeks, as I'm seeing all these social media posts from whānau or groups bringing in experts in particular areas to have robust, legitimate kōrero around some of the issues that we're discussing these days, because that tika versus tika thing that's happening on Facebook, it's getting quite overwhelming. So we need to identify, right, how can we change that into a positive? So, you know, using the digital space to bring in experts is something really important. Android users, I'm an Android user, I take offense. Ka pai, implementing tikanga, ka pai, paitira whakaaro, bombardment of information. So what is good information? What is not good information? Ka pai, lack of understanding, capability of the end user participant. Ka pai. So a couple of different options there, but coming through those strong themes of Wi-Fi and connectivity, and also of digital literacy, which is convenient that you should say that, because this next slide is kind of going to deal with some of those things around digital literacy. So how can we make things easier for our whānau to use some of these digital tools? A great example or a great exercise to do is, if I've explained something in the previous 9 slides, and you're like, oh, that looks cool, but I have no idea what she's on about. Why don't you understand what I'm saying? Like, what significant information was missing from my explanation that you need to be able to use that tool? And then so by identifying it for yourself, you know what you might need to incorporate into an explanation if you're trying to use it to your tauira, to your whānau, to your workmates. Ka pai? So a really great tip or tool is making engaging content. Okay, so one of the things that, oh yeah, it's on the next slide. So is a Zoom cheat sheet. So sending this out before you're going to have an online hui about how to operate Zoom. Even though we've been in this space for like 2 years now, there's still people that don't know what's going on. There's probably people in this breakout space that don't know what's going on. And that's kei te pai, it's all new. So what are some of those features that they can use? How do you mute yourself? How do you unmute yourself? What's the problem with my video being on if I'm, you know, getting out of the shower and I didn't realize? That's happened numerous times. How do you add a reaction? How do you record? What the heck is a breakout room? So a quick little cheat sheet to send out before a hui that has links on it is so valuable to achieving digital competency. So making engaging content is also super important. Okay, so writing words, just a post on social media or an email isn't really going to spark much attention, grab anyone's attention, because you might have put so much thought into this big long post, but that's just going to be chucked amongst all these other big long posts on a feed. So how can you make digital content more engaging? I was a bit unusual about sharing this next resource with you because it kind of gives away all of my success. Like people say, oh, Genae, you're so cool at graphics design. Where do you get all these pukinga? And I'm like, oh, you know, I just work hard. But really, it all comes from this thing called Canva. So if you've used Canva before, ka pai, ka wini te roto. If not, meri krihi me te ki a koe. So Canva is an online platform. You log in there, once again, free to a degree. If you want the advanced features, you pay something like, I don't know, $15, $20 a month. It's also, I didn't know this for the 8 years I was teaching, you get a free one if you're a kayako. I've been paying for it this whole time. So you go in there and there's pre-made templates of everything. It might be a bit harder to see up the top there, but you can make videos, logos, Instagram posts, presentations, posters, everything. You literally just click on there and you change the colors and change the words. So karoha if you're a graphics designer, just before this came out, because this just kind of blew all that competition out the water. So this wasn't like a subtle plug for our Te Reo Māori for Teachers courses. I was just showing you an example of what you can do with Canva. So that's all laid out, literally click on it, chuck your logos in. So when doing engaging content or posts, go on to Canva, click Instagram posts, see something that looks pretty. It's even got the motion graphics and all that sort of thing. Put your kupu on there, your kōrero, and then away you go. It's just download, upload, just like you would a photo. So you're welcome. Ka pai. Once we have our amazing content, how do we share it? So this is a big issue for some people, is when we share things and then we don't have access, or you've accidentally shared out a master copy of something and then you can see people typing away on all of your mahi. Obviously not ideal. So this is something that I'd learned as well. If you're using Google Documents, the document, it's called a document ID, which is all the blah, 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 blah letters after the slash. if you want to make it automatic that people have to create their own copy of something, therefore they can't tutu with yours, you don't have to give them any editing rights or anything as you do this really simple thing called force copy. So you just delete everything after the slash. So from edit and on, and then type in the word copy, and then you'll get an automatic copy. So to show you how to do that, I'm going to share a copy to this presentation. So you can do with it what you want. I mean, you can just take my picture out and say that you're a digital expert if you want and deliver that. I don't mind that. Without doing something like this, you would need to wait for all of the slides to be uploaded to the web portal, and then you'd need to download it and save it in a safe place and all that sort of thing. 5 minutes? I thought we went till 2. Oh, goodbye. So what I'll do is I'll keep talking once you're all gone, and then I'll just upload this link to somewhere so that you can still access all of these cool things that we've done anyway, but we're going to power through, and I'll share this out at the end. Okay, 5 minutes. Right, we're not going to foster, we're not going to do this. We're going to have another little kōrero with Neopod about fostering whanaungatanga. That's not going to happen anymore, sorry. You can put a time limit on this though, so I can say, right, you've only got 45 seconds to answer this question, and then you would move on. So really good if you want to gain some sort of feedback as well. So we'll just try and cover this social media kaupapa whilst we have time. So I've recently been told by some secondary students that Facebook is for old people. I'm 35 and Facebook is like my jam, so I'm considered old to them. So understanding all of those different social media platforms and who's engaging with what platform is going to be really important to how you use these things. If you're trying to engage rangatahi, well, apparently they're not on Facebook, so you need to flick over to Instagram or TikTok. So this is where things like that Canva that I showed you before, that's going to be come in really handy to have that content that you can engage with them. If you wanted to be one of those kaumata or pakeke that try to do TikToks, by all means, you go hard. You work with what you've got. I'm sure your rangatahi will love it. So this is here because on that page, this is how we network as whānau. So we've got our marae page, and then we've also got a sort of town whānau page as well. And this is probably much like you guys as well, where you put up pānui pertaining to hui events, all that sort of thing on Facebook. A really important thing to remember though is when you're just posting on Facebook or a page like this, is you're expecting whānau to come to you. So they actually have to go, oh, I wonder what's happening with the marae, or they need to see it in their feed, and that's just going to be a coincidence of when you post and if they're online or not. So that idea of them going to you, that's probably why you're not going to get as much engagement as you'd be hoping for, because you need to find ways to go to them. So understanding those different social media platforms is going to be vital. I'll speed through this and then I'll do a recording of in-depth stuff so that you can watch it later if you want. So interactive activities, I've been invited to so many quiz nights. They're done to death on Zoom. The questions aren't interesting and people always cheat. So I'm over that. So trying to build relationships in a social forum online, here's just a couple of tools that you can use. So this thing here is called Flippity, where you can make really cool interactive activities like random generators. Once again, all free, all super easy to use. This is really handy, even if you're in a corporate environment and you want to pick on people or randomly draw people out of a hat, you can do this random name generator where you literally copy and paste your names into a box and then it turns it into a spinning wheel. So now you don't have to cut up lots of little bits of paper and put it in a hat. So that's, once again, send the link out and away you go. This is probably the best one that I've used, and that's a quiz show that kind of operates like Jeopardy, I guess. You have categories up the top and then points values. You just upload a Google Sheet with your questions and then separate your whānau into teams. So if the question was world capitals, the category is world capitals, and they want to go for the top spot and try and get 500 points, that's going to be the hardest question on that board. If they get it right, you hear like this ding ding bell sound, and 500 points automatically gets added to their score. If they get it wrong, then they go into deficit, which I quite enjoy, seeing people get really, really cocky and then losing all their points because they don't actually know what they're talking about. I'll show you, I'll send you a link to that as well. Another thing to replicate that our kaumātua love is online bingo. So my nan was all about housey. Doing it online, you can still do it. You can generate your online bingo cards. All the whānau get sent a link and it pops up straight away. They click on their screen and it X's out the different things that you call out. It's once again, this is where those kind of cheat sheet instructional cards would come in really handy if you were to make them and send them out. So hopefully you can kind of consolidate this and think, oh, we have another 10 minutes. Oh, well, I've nearly finished now, rangi nui. Oh, kei te pai, I'll just talk slower. Okay, so if you were to kind of consolidate what we've learned thus far, if you were trying to reach your whānau in a digital platform, so let's refer to our actual whānau. So we know that we all live, you know, noho wehe. Some of us are in the towns, rural still, some are overseas, and we wanted to you know, build some whanaungatanga. How to use Zoom is going to be a huge thing for our kaumātua. So sending out some instructions on how to do that. Send a Loom out to them. Say, okay, Nan, you're going to click on this symbol here, and then you're going to see this pop up, and then this is going to happen. Then you might have a Facebook post to advertise that. So do something super cool and engaging using Canva to get people interested in it, as opposed to here's the Zoom link whānau. And then do an online bingo or something like that, once again with those cheat sheets. So it's literally step by step, but you haven't made it sound as maroke as you possibly could. Like my whānau does. It's like, well, let's take a potentially interesting interactive activity like whanaungatanga online, and let's make it sound real boring by just putting text and links on a Facebook page. Okay? We could do better than that. So there's some tools for you to think about. I'm going to just bring you back to this. I'm going to bring you back to the screen presenting. So then I can actually share the links with you. So if you can just close your Neopod. And I'm going to try and share this link with you in the chat. Kapai. Right, we've got another few minutes. So if you're back on the main screen, you should just see your Zoom. And then can someone give me a thumbs up if you managed to open that link to Bingo Baker? Kapai. I can't quite remember what the Bingo Baker was. Matihiko? Was it Matihiko? Kapai. So if we had more time, we were going to do an online bingo game where you now have your own copy of a bingo card, and I was going to ask you super hohonu questions about all of the things that that we've talked about, but we're not going to do that. So you can just imagine that we did it. If you click on one of those icons, so you can put pictures in there, you can put words in there. It's literally a drag and drop into a grid. There's no like, oh, I need to figure out how to do coding and whatever. It's literally drag and drop onto a screen. So if I said, out of all of these things, which has the most users, what would you click? Any whakaaro? I just made that question up. I actually don't know. I assume it's probably Google. So if you click Google, ka pai. So then you just click Google and then it'll exit from your card. Then if I said, oh, what activity can you use? All your cards are going to look different. I'm just looking at mine. What's something that you can use to use interactive slides? I'll click Neopod. Where can you find online name generator? I'm going to click Flippity. Now I've got 3 in a row, so I won. Did anyone get those? Has anyone got the same card as me? Well, we should have been playing along. Whānau, go catch up if you want to win these prizes. Okay, bye. Okay, I'm going to quickly screen share again. Can you see the bingo? Or my desktop? Bingo, ka pai. Okay, this is another really, really good one that I just want to cover, which is Flipgrid. So this is how you can get oral responses. So literally send out a link and then you can do a quick video of yourself responding to something orally. Once again, no uploads, no downloads, no sharing, nothing. On that link there, there's actually a grid set up for this hui. So if you want to go in there and tutu with Flipgrid, then you can say something like, oh, ngā mihi nui kia koe Genae, that was so amazing, I learned so much. Just the hey tauira. So you can add like a oral response there if you want to, or any pārtai that you might have, and you can tutu with it that way. This next one, and we'll finish on this one, is Google Forms. And I just put this in at the last minute because I just saw my cousin trying to sell marae hoodies for our reopening. And she said, comment below with your size and what you want to order on a Facebook post. And I was like, girl, use Google Forms. So just a really, really great way to just capture quick whakaaro, super easy to set up. But the coolest thing about Google Forms is when you go to the responses, you can get a summary here of all of that information. So if it's something like, are we free to have our hui whānau on the 13th or the 14th of the month, and the majority say 13th, then depending if you want lots of people there, that's when you have it. So it's just an easy snapshot of doing things, as opposed to comment below, because then someone has to go through all of that. So just hei whakakapi, sort of drawing your attention to the younger generation and who are using digital technologies now, and that was kind of ideas that we posed about building relationships into the future. It's one, super important to use platforms that engage them, but also to have them involved. Okay, because if you, like my mum runs stuff and she's 60 something and she doesn't even know how to turn her computer off or update or anything. But if you had someone that's, you know, in their early 20s that wants to get more involved, they might not be in a position to write a strategic plan, but they can do some engaging Instagram posts, or they can do TikToks that aren't from 2 years ago, that sort of thing. So it's an opportunity to engage those different reanga in our whanaungatanga and building those connections moving forward. And also that idea that I've got here, unlearning to relearn. So there can be a lot of anxiety around digital technologies. We kind of almost need to start again in some ways to think, actually, I can do this, because it's just clicking the right button at the right time. And in order to do that, you kind of open yourself up to all of these really awesome tools that you can use moving forward in all these different spaces. So, ka nui tērā e te whānau. I will also, we have a Facebook page for Poutawa, and it has all these little videos on there. So if you are interested in learning more jump on there. We're also going to do lots of sort of free webinars too, if you want to kind of build your pukenga matihiko a bit more as well. Yeah, under time. Knew I could do it, but I am sweaty, bro. Rangi nui, that was a lot of pressure.
I knew you could do it, Tuhine. I knew you could do it. Good to see you. Kia mohi o mai koutou whānau. Genae and I started our teaching careers together, and it was good to see all my teaching influence sort of rubbed off everything she knows. I sort of taught her whare wānanga.
Oh, we gotta go.
Nā, e nei Kōrero, I was the hōhā one, turned up for digital literacy, and I turned up with a piece of paper and a pencil. Heoi anō, ko tāku ki a koe i tēnei wā, he tuku mihi ki a koe, mō e nei koha, i tuarihia mai kia mātou i tēnei rangi nei, and this ever-changing world and the dynamics that COVID's putting us through. Tools like this are invaluable, and we're lucky even that we got an extension on this. Heoi anō e te whānau, we know how to get a hold of Genae. Look up Poutawa Digital on Facebook and you'll find her there. Mehe pātai anō. We'll probably see you guys a little later on today, tomorrow, Thursday. No reira, whakakapi noa ki e konei, ka mihi nui atu ki a koe, taku tuahine, tēnā koe o tira, tēnā koutou. 3, 2, 1.